Unfortunately, what you're about to hear is real. The members of this radio program are simply not that bright, or what some people would call educated. They are merely stupid. They're not trying to offend anyone on purpose. And all have played doctors on TV. You have been warned and are cordially invited to join the party. This is the men's room.
Forget it, man, and get with the countdown. Get with the countdown. Shake this square world and blast off for Kicksville. The trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
This is the men's room with Miles and Thrill. You know what they say, shake your radio more than 3 times, and you're playing with it.
Whack it.
You're listening to the men's room.
And away we go. Welcome to show number 2,745. Along with Steve the Thrill Hill. The Ted Smith. Robin Fox. And Mike Hawk. And you are in the men's room. On tap today, the return of Who Sucks Less. The word goes back to secret medical slang. Get ready to play Profile This. Plus headlines, the men's room shot of the day, fun with listener emails, and everyone's favorite, TV Time with Ted. Click, clack. Drinkity drunk. All right, here we go. Texas woman who did over $1 million damage to an art collection could get life in jail. Meanwhile, a British singer says that smoking and eating meat should be illegal, and we're all going to hell. Good news is last year breaks record for the most organs donated saving lives. Yay. A dad finds something on son's phone that makes him break out into hives, and U.S. Immigration does a massive sweep on 7-Eleven. That is all coming on today's very special episode of The Men's Room.
And now, here's the question.
Hola, bitches. Good day to you and yours. All right, let's go to the fine state of Wisconsin. Now, a guy there would not cooperate with the police, and eventually they used a stun gun on him. And we've heard this story a million times. Well, the difference in this case is that one of the barbs from the stun gun happened to hit the lighter in his pocket, which lit the lighter fluid, and basically the guy burst into flames. Now, the good news is, for the most part, he was okay. It was mostly, I believe, his beard and his chest hair that caught on fire.
Ooh.
Yeah, most of him would be all right.
Just his face.
Just his face. But they hit him with the stun gun. He burst into flames. Now, the good news in his case is that at least it's understood how and why he was on fire. That's not the case for a 70-year-old guy in London who spontaneously combusted while he was walking down the street. A lot of people, they debate whether or not spontaneous combustion is real. Look, I don't know, but in this case, there were witnesses. The guy was physically walking down the street, and they're like, man, basically, this guy exploded into flames, dropped to the ground. They rushed him to the hospital, but in the end, he ended up dying. And they said, look, we have done everything we can to figure out why he caught on fire. There is no particular reason other than he just caught on fire. And that, let's face it, is not something you see every day, even if you work in the rescue industry. And if you work in the rescue industry, you see all kinds of things every day. In this case, let's go to Florida. An SUV, it crashes on a highway, and actually it drove off the road, went airborne, crashed through a fence before finally slamming into a tree. Now, what made the rescue operation so difficult was that the SUV also broke open several beehive boxes, because wouldn't you know it, the yard they crashed into was the yard of a beekeeper. So when rescue gets there, there are thousands of bees, angry, swarming around the RV.
Like 10 boxes of bees he ran over.
Right. That's the house you crashed into. All the houses you could crash into, that's the one. So now there's thousands of bees. The rescue team shows up, and eventually they were rescued, but understandably, this rescue took a little longer than usual. It's like, we'll be right there. Just hang on. We know it hurts. We'll get there just as soon as we can. But that's what made the rescue operation that much more difficult, and sometimes that's just how life goes. A bad situation can get worse. A dumb situation can get dumber. We've all heard, hey man, don't throw water on a grease fire. If you've ever made the mistake of doing that, you understand why. It's bad because you have a grease fire.
It still happens.
But it's teeny tiny, so you took a little glass of water, you threw it on there, now your kitchen's on fire, because that's how these things go. You don't expect it, And whether it's good or bad, it's always kind of stupid. So today's question, we want to know, what is the craziest thing that happened to someone you know?
Be part of the big show. Call 844-999-OLA. You can like the Men's Room on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Men's Room Live. And send those emails to the Men's Room at mensroomlive.com. You are listening to the Men's Room Radio Network.
Hola, bichola! You have entered the men's room.
Hola, bicholas, and away we go. Welcome to show number 2,745 in a large and a charge program we have for you today. Our return of Who Sucks Less. The word goes back to secret medical slang. We touched on it about. A lot of them are acronyms. A lot of them are just code words that they might put on your chart to let the other nurses, the other doctors, get a better idea of what's going on with said patient. And we'll dive deeper into that today, coming up with the word. In another round coming up, profile this as well. And our question, what's the craziest thing that's happened to someone you know? Let's get this bad boy underway as we start with investigators who have been left mystified by the case of a 70-year-old pensioner.
Yes, pensioner.
A pensioner. Mm-hmm. What is a pensioner? Is that someone who earns a wage?
Somebody's living off their pension, right?
Is that it?
Yeah, pensioner.
I don't know.
We don't have pensions here in the United States, so I didn't know how that works.
We used to.
Yeah, we did back in the day. So 70-year-old pensioner means a retiree, I guess. All right. Burst into flames and died in front of a horrified passerby on a quiet London street. Pedestrians watched in horror as they saw John Nolan ablaze in Orchard Place, north of London. Some desperately tried to put out the fire as others called the emergency services, according to the Daily Mail. This happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right in the middle of the day. Mr. Nolan, who was unmarried, a retired construction worker from County Mayo, Ireland, was flown to Broomfield Hospital by air ambulance, but died the next day. His body was 65% covered in third-degree burns. Now, the London Fire Brigade specialist investigators were unable to find anything at the scene that could have possibly sparked a fire.
Yeah.
No property, nothing else was harmed in the blaze. Detectives are appealing for witnesses to come forward to try to explain how Mr. Nolan came to catch on fire. But if you know anything about what we know to be spontaneous human combustion, this goes back to the quicksand days of Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah, except this is documented. I mean, this happens. It does not happen frequently. Quicksand, I mean, they said to die in quicksand, you almost have to kill yourself. Like the way it was shown on all the TV shows and movies. When we were growing up, there were a few things you were terrified of. Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, and quicksand.
Loch Ness Monster.
It didn't matter what TV show you watched. At some point during the series, someone got trapped in quicksand, and it became a two-parter.
And then the Brady's met the Loch Ness Monster. Like, they get trapped in quicksand one episode, the next they're on a boat.
They did get trapped in quicksand.
I'm pretty sure,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, $6 million man. Everybody got trapped. And so when you were a kid, man, if you told anyone, hey, man, you know that one little patch on so-and-so road, that's quicksand. You were terrified of this thing.
Now, one thing we do know is that this studio in here is electric. And when I mean it's electric, I mean if you get up and you touch anything, you're going to get a really good zap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, and I'm not sure that static electricity necessarily could start a fire. But if you're wearing wool, I'm trying to think of something that would be just like the slightest bit of kindling or like.
But it has to be internal. There was like somebody
lint off your shirt or something that catches fire maybe.
Like 10 years ago, there was a guy sitting in his chair, I guess, and because I remember we were looking online at this, and they show the picture, and it is just the perfect shape of a human being burned into this guy's chair. But he was gone, man. It was ashes.
Yeah, I mean, it legit kind of happened.
Yeah, but again, no one can ever explain why. Like, there's no common denominator, it seems. Well, actually, that guy was old. Very subtle, man.
Maybe you got to be old.
Here, you open a beer from here. God damn.
Maybe you got to be old to spontaneously combust.
That's what I'm saying. Does anyone young spontaneously combust? I want to say the one we were looking at a decade ago in the chair is an old dude. This guy was 70, 71 years old, walking down. Do old people just burst into flames?
And would you believe somebody? If I was like, yeah, man, like my buddy, I don't know, Charles.
Spontaneously combusted?
He spontaneously combusted, and he's gone.
I don't know. I mean, it's in this case, the big difference between this guy's story and most of the other ones, he's walking down the street in the middle of the day, and there are people who can see him, and he just
caught on fire. Now, here's the thing. This is even worse, in my mind. Guy is 70 years old.
Yeah.
He's worked his ass off his entire life in construction, which, as you know, is a physically demanding job. It's, it's brutal on your body. He's not married. He has no family. He's 70 years old. He finally gets to enjoy because, you work up in your 60s nowadays, right? For the most part.
I don't know. Well, England still has pensions.
Yeah.
Like,
Either
they
way,
didn't bail out the banks. We did.
This is what sucks. You work your entire life, and then all of a sudden you're walking down the street minding your own business, and you just catch on fire and die.
See, I think that's okay, though.
You think that's okay?
I think, look, you're already 70. Look, the whole thing, you already have to work well and past the prime of your health. So by the time you retire, really, things are not looking great for you anyway. It's just the way the system is set. Because you're no longer useful. It's not that they don't want you to keep working, but you get to a certain age, you're not useful to anybody.
Extended family's heartbroken.
Retire.
His brother-in-law, Tom, said John wouldn't hurt so much as a butterfly. In fact, he'd find a way to bring the butterfly home and care for it.
But would you rather be him that spontaneously combusted, which sucks because you're dead, right? But hear me out. But then there's a lot of people, like in our country, who did the correct things, who invested in their 401ks, who had the IRAs. And when the market crashed in 2008, they lost everything.
Oh, sure.
And
They're broken alive.
Right.
And look, you're going to die.
So would you rather catch on fire or lose everything? Is that the scenario?
I mean, I'd
rather burst into flames and be... I mean, look, you're going to die. I don't know why people deny this. It's a very simple fact of life. If you're alive, you're going to die, right? We understand that.
Yeah, but there are certain ways that you hope you don't die, and that's one of them.
It doesn't hurt. And to me, if you spontaneously combust, based on the heat they say that's generated, you're not feeling pain for long. They said the heat generated from what the best they can tell and the remnants that they find of people that have allegedly spontaneously combusted. Like, man, don't sweat it. Like, he went out fine.
Okay.
Walking down the street, and then he just wasn't. That's basically how things were for him. Maybe he's like, does it seem a bit warm? And that was it.
I wonder if they still have to pay for the cremation.
You know what I read? Technically, you might have to. Somebody said that, I was just reading this, that they were getting whoever the loved one was cremated. And because, one, it does save money. You're not taking up space on the earth and all this. You still had to buy a casket. They still charged you for a casket. So even though this guy, in theory, is just a pile of ashes now, I get the feeling if you're going to have any memorial service at all outside of your home, they're still going to have to buy a casket. Mm-hmm. I was like, why do you buy a casket if someone's cremated? Because now what do you do with the casket, right? So, Ted, we get you cremated, but we have to buy a casket. But you're in an urn. So now when I die, can I say, well, look, we already have a casket, or do they make you buy another casket?
Can you repurpose a casket?
So I mean, like,
can it be a love seat?
You can make it a love seat.
Could it be a table?
Outdoor planter.
What if you flattened it out, right? Because the top's always rounded.
Yeah.
If you flattened out the top, man, that'd be a pretty dope table. You could open it up, and you could have beers and ice inside of it.
Because nothing makes you more comfortable than a cooler in the shape of a coffin. Like, no, it's not just in the shape of a coffin. It is a coffin.
You're correct.
Yes.
But on the same token, let's be honest. I invite you guys over. I have a coffin full of ice and beer.
We're getting drunk.
Do you want? Yeah. Do you want a beer?
Have you seen? Have you seen
without question,
Robin?
Man.
You want a beer, Mike? I think everybody's in for one of these.
Have you seen
beers.
the cooler coffee table, man, that has the door right at the bottom? You can't see.
No.
Oh, it's sweet. Yeah. There's basically just like a little mini
party
fridge.
sub in your casket's future.
Oh yeah, I could put a 6 foot or 3 foot.
Would you be buried with a sub?
That would be a waste of a giant sub.
No, we could eat it. You pick down and you just take a piece
As
off.
you go up for the viewing.
Yeah.
As you go up to see Ted.
Everybody gets a piece.
Right.
I mean, I'd be fine with it. I just don't know if other people want to eat sub off Dead Ted.
I'd do it.
Dead Ted sub.
I know you would.
Yeah, I'd do it.
Talk about normal people.
Okay. All right. Now let's go to Louisiana.
Hey, man, he's got a whole sub in there.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
I mean, what kind of sub is it, though? That goes a long way.
And
like,
you'd have like some shredded lettuce on your side by the time it was all said and done.
You know what the worst part is? You guys know my friend Bernie.
Yeah.
He'd be opening up like the other side. Like, I know that squeezable mayonnaise in here somewhere, man.
Yeah.
He's got mustard in his front pocket.
Hey, Bernie.
Reach into his suit pocket. He's got mustard.
Oh, dude.
It's like red pepper flakes on a pizza. It's in there somewhere.
We put napkins in his inside pocket. If you want to wipe your mouth, pull the jacket open on Dead Ted.
Oh, man. This is a crazy story
He
here.
should wear the same hoodie he always did.
Back in September, Texas resident Vicky Bergquist and wife Jeanette LeBlanc were visiting family in Louisiana. And they went crabbing with friends and family on the coast. They picked up a sack of raw oysters in the market, and it wasn't long after that when LeBlanc's health rapidly declined. The couple's friend, Karen Bowers, said she and LeBlanc shucked and ate about 24 oysters. About 36 hours later, she started having extreme respiratory distress, had a rash on her legs, and the whole deal. An allergic reaction of sorts, that's what I would call it. That's what we first thought. Well, her condition went from bad to worse in 48 hours. Doctors told Jeanette she had Vibrio.
What does that mean? If a doctor tells you that,
It's a flesh-eating bacteria.
Okay, say that.
She had several wounds on her legs from the bacteria that were eating into her skin.
Jesus.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, people can become infected after eating raw or uncooked shellfish or by exposing open wounds to brackish water. So it could have been when they were out there crabbing.
Right.
You don't know. I mean, who knows? I can't even imagine going through that for 21 days, much less a day. She was not able to recover. She was bigger than life, great person, laughed a lot and all that. But yeah, man, that sounds like a wonderful time. You're going to go on vacation. You're going to eat some crabs, go crabbing, get some fresh oysters. Next thing you know, 48 hours later, you're dead from a flesh-eating virus.
See, man, I like oysters, but like anything that comes from the ocean, they seem to lead to a lot of really weird situations. Like if you like oysters, right, they're delicious, they're slimy, they go down easy, the whole nine. But people that have food poisoning or any kind of thing from oysters seems a lot different than whether it's pork, beef, or one of the E. coli carrying spinach and all the rest of that garbage. Just like oysters always seem really, really bad.
People have cut themselves on oyster beds and clam beds.
Right.
And then just died from being cut, being scraped, walking out of the water. And then the bacteria and the infection takes over. And
that's what I'm saying.
I think the oysters, too, I know, I like them. Yeah. I know people that love them, right? For me, I'm having 2, maybe 4.
All right.
I just feel like you roll the dice when you start eating 2 dozen oysters to yourself.
The more you eat, the more you roll the dice. But anytime I get oysters, it's like you're getting 12 to 18.
Yeah.
So I'm going to eat 6 to 9 of them, maybe 10.
There's a guy.
But unlike Miles with mushrooms, I will say this. I look at the oysters for real. Look, the thing about an oyster is it already looks horrible. It looks like the last thing on earth you should eat, right? It's a big gray snot sitting in a shell. So I look at it and I'm like, if you make me uncomfortable in spite of the fact you're nothing but a gray booger sitting in it, if you look bad for that, I'm not going to, because there's not a whole lot of leg room. You can't look worse than an oyster and say you're edible. So if as an oyster you look bad, I'm like, I'm definitely not eating this.
Yeah, but you could have a guy.
Because even a good oyster doesn't look good. The freshest oyster in the world doesn't look good.
Look, there was a guy in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Now, I guarantee you, if we went back to this one oyster place, he is still the guy shucking oysters.
The guy with the cigarette?
The guy with the cigarette who basically flicked the oyster and hit me in the eye. He could have killed me.
I could have gotten an eye. He hit you in the eye. You did not adjust your mouth to the proper trajectory.
He was going to flick it into my mouth while I was shucking. He's like, all right, you ready? I'm like, I'm ready. And all of a sudden it went, all of a sudden it just
slid off
down. I mean, I missed it just completely. Could have killed me.
Even the look on the guy's face.
But
it's like, God damn, man.
This guy probably shucks, I don't even know, 1,000 or so oysters a day. Easy, right?
He was doing... Yeah, probably at least 1,000.
If you're doing
a dozen at a time.
I mean, come on. He's probably
that's
doing
all
at least
he
that many.
does.
So he's going to never die of any kind of oyster illness. He's never going to get cut.
He probably doesn't get the flu.
He's probably cut himself 100 times.
He couldn't get Ebola.
With an oyster
Wasn't he
knife.
wearing the gloves?
He was.
He was. But he has one glove. The hand is pressing down. But the thing is, he does it so fast. And I understand the guys that do this is what they do, and they do it well. But inevitably, you cut yourself. Look, everyone that works in the kitchen, if you worked in the kitchen for 20 freaking years, you still cut yourself within the last 6 months. You're the best of the best. You have the best knife skills of anyone on earth, and guess what? You're still going to cut yourself.
Right.
It's just how it goes. Oyster shucker.
If you ever get a chance to go to, I think it's Casamentos in the Garden District in New Orleans.
I know it was the Garden District. I don't remember.
Go
the
there.
name.
You can't.
How do you remember the name?
Because the guy hit me in the face with an oyster.
You have more reason to want to remember.
I had a delicious soft shell crab sandwich, which was probably one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life.
Oysters are one of the only things, too, that, at a restaurant, the waiter will be dead honest. I went to an oyster house.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, late summer. And the guy just did the thing where he, leans over the table and he's like, listen, we sell them. You don't want to eat them right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was like, I suggest this. But it's only seafood. Steaks, let me tell you, but once at an airport, too, I was at a nicer restaurant. I ordered, a shrimp cocktail, and the guy was like, hey, man, I really recommend you get the fried shrimp. I was like, okay.
All right. You want it cooked.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Deeply cooked in hot grease. And you're right, seafood's the one they warn you about. Yeah. I think because seafood, look, it's going to get you so sick so quick. You're going to know it's the restaurant. So, basically, before you throw a restaurant under the bus, I'm just telling you. Actually, last time I was in New Orleans, and I don't remember what month I was there, but ordered as a shrimp, all this different seafood stuff, right? So I'm in New Orleans, and the waiter, he said, look, I'm not going to get you this, this, or this. I'm like, well, what the hell, man? He goes, we fish for most of our stuff here in New Orleans. I'm like, no kidding. He's like, this is not the season. I do not know where it's from. And I said, you know what, man? Good call. He's like, I'm not trying to freak you out, but he said, you seem like a decent guy. I'm not even going to sell you this because it's like, I don't know where it comes from. And if it's not like this month through this month and you're in this place, do not order this. I was like, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Rescuers had to brave thousands of angry insects after an SUV crashed off of Interstate 75 on Wednesday afternoon and drove through several boxes of beehives. This according to the police.
What are the odds? Like, I wish someone statistically could tell, what are the odds that where your car goes off the road, goes airborne, crashes through a fence, that before you hit a tree, you also go through a beekeeper's yard?
According to police, the SUV drove off I-75 near mile marker 172.
Oh, it's the dangerous part.
Makes sense.
Always. 172.
It then went airborne, Dukes of Hazzard style.
Yeehaw!
Then, through the air, it crashed through a fence.
Of course.
It was pretty cool.
Right. It's
if
still
you're
going.
if you're gonna wreck, man, you know what I mean? Like, yeehaw, man, you're flying, like, wow.
Everyone else is screaming. Miles like, see if you can hit the fence.
I mean, there's one thing that's terrible when your car starts sliding on ice, and you're like, oh, I can't stop it, and it's, but I mean, I'm talking about you catch air, you bust through a fence. This is exciting stuff. Until you run into 1,000 beehives.
No, that's exciting too, man. That's equally as exciting.
Several beehive boxes, thousands of bees, then into a tree. So at the time, thousands of bees are swarming the crash scene. So the people that were inside, they didn't want to get out.
No.
Nobody wanted to come and get them out.
No.
They're pretty well just in there.
But it's one of the few times you don't have to explain. Another circumstance.
Closing the vents.
But like you wreck your car, rescue shows up, and if it's going to take them a while to do something, there's someone there comforting you. There's someone explaining to you what's going on. When the bees are buzzing, they probably just look at each other through the windows and shrug like, you get it. Right?
Oh, they got
what
rid
do you
of the
get?
bees.
Like a fire extinguisher?
No, close.
All right.
A high-pressure foam spray.
All right.
To temporarily clear the bees.
Well, like the fireman's foam? Like
No,
what kind of foam?
I'm thinking like, man.
Bee foam.
I'm thinking like you're at the car wash.
Oh, that kind of foam.
Maybe,
you think
I
this
don't
big
know.
sudsy?
Oh, no. You call your buddy that's a DJ on Thursday night at that club.
Foam party guy.
Get over here.
Yeah, come on, man.
I knew about the extinguisher because it's once on Chips,
Come on.
a car crashed that had snakes in it. And that's how Punch got through it. He
Oh,
used
really?
a fire extinguisher on the snakes. But it
Wow,
was the
what did
same
that
thing.
do? Chill the
I guess it chilled him out. I mean, it's TV, but it's the same thing.
Would you trust that theory? All right. Now
No.
come on. No, but it's your mom, dude. You got to get her out of the car. There happens to be snakes in there. Frankly, Ted, I'm not helping you. But here's a fire extinguisher.
My mom.
Your mom.
That's not fair.
Well, no, she's also old. So you
That's
can
the
be like,
only
hey, man,
person I think at this point in my life I'd go near the snakes for.
brother gone, nieces and
see ya,
nephews,
Chris.
peace.
CJ had a good 13 years.
Everybody,
Damn.
everybody seems to know that guy who just kind of finds himself in it. You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy. Well, you're just not shocked to hear that he was the one involved.
Oh, no.
This
he
seems,
should be.
This seems like this
Good
guy.
stuff or bad stuff?
Both.
It depends.
All right.
In your
Depends on
group
the
of
guy.
friends, if we said, out of our group of friends, guess who won the lottery? Most of us would guess the same person because for whatever reason, fortune shines light on their ass all the time. And if we say, hey, this guy got arrested by the cops, most of us would know who it is because he's the idiot.
And sometimes it seems like the worst people in life are the people who end up doing pretty well.
Yes.
You know what I
Or
mean?
the
Like-
people that need it least. What was it, like J-Lo's
Karma
mother?
doesn't work that well all the time.
No, J-Lo's mother hit like some multi-million-dollar jackpot either in
Wasn't it
Atlantic
Beyonce?
City or
Was it
like
Beyonce's
No, it was J.
mom?
But either way, like it's not like her and her mom are estranged. J-Lo had been providing for mom, so mom had a great house, wonderful car, everything's taken care of, no mortgage, nothing to worry about. And of all the people to pull the slot, it's like, oh, of course, the millionaire's mother does it.
Police arrested a 32-year-old man Sunday evening for standing in the street without any clothes on. Officers found Travis Tingler naked, where he was shouting toward a home at the intersection that he had a knife and was going to gut people in the home. Officers showed up. Tingler told officers he wasn't doing anything wrong, according to the police department report. I told him he couldn't be out in the middle of the street with no clothes on, according to the officer, as stated in the report. I asked him about his condition. I noticed he had a very dazed appearance, blank stare, and he was sweating profusely. The officer suspected Tingler, who said other people were messing with him and he was calling them out, was impaired by drugs. He told the officer he could be out on the street with no clothes on and that he did not have a weapon. Tingler said he wanted to go home on 25th Street, so police instead handcuffed him and, finding a pair of tenants on the front lawn, finding a pair of pants on the front lawn, trying to put them on Tingler. Officers later found a pocket knife on the front porch of a nearby home, along with coins and several cigarette butts. Police talked to a girl who was holding a baby in the home. She said Tingler was dating her mother, and they had lived in the same home for about 2 years.
Lucky you.
She said he started drinking alcohol 3 hours earlier and started to act weird, making comments such as, "Stay in the light and never come into the dark." He threw the glass he'd been drinking into the street, breaking it, and took off his clothes and threw them onto the front porch, according to the girl. Tingler refused to get into the squad car and said he wanted to see his kids. The mother came home from work, and police used stun guns to get the man into the car. Police reported that Tingler somehow picked up a lighter during the struggle, and when the stun gun probe hit the lighter, a combination of lighter fluid and electricity for the stun gun caused Tingler's beard and chest hair to immediately catch on fire.
Damn.
An officer tried to pat the fire off his body, and Tingler continued to fight even after the fire was put out. He then punched an officer in the face. An officer used another stun gun on him again from 6 feet away, and then he fell and hit his head on the pavement. Officers called the ambulance. He was arrested, blah, 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 blah. They did test positive for marijuana and did have a blood alcohol content of 0.177.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
They stunned him again while he was on fire?
He started punching an officer.
While he was on fire?
They
Well,
patted
he's
him out
still
first.
punching.
No. It's amazing that only alcohol was in his system. I mean, that seems like PCP.
Yeah, that seems real PCP. A couple of comments came in. It says, first guy says, I wonder how Thrill can eat a piece of snot from the ocean, being an oyster, but not a cucumber? That's gross. Come on, man. Look, bro, I don't know what to tell you. I think cucumbers taste like ass. I think oysters feel like ass, but they taste reasonably decent. I don't know how to explain it. I wish I liked cucumbers. I just freaking don't. And then as far as oysters going and all the weird food illnesses you can get from them, the guy says, in Navy SEAL school, buds, that flesh-eating virus happens regularly. Caught fast, usually because they told us about it and what to look for. But it is very bad.
It sounds that way. If it'll eat your flesh in 48 hours, if you don't catch it and know what it is.
Yeah, it eats your flesh. And then as far as the bees and the spraying them with foam, says we have foam on the fire engine for fire suppression.
Well, it obviously suppresses bees.
Yeah, but do you know that in advance? I mean, if you're a firefighter,
You know it now.
You know you have foam, but would you know? Because to me, if I'm a firefighter and say, hey, man, there's a bunch of bees, I would think, open the hose and we're blasting these bitches with water.
I think it'd be fun to have a foam hose.
I have one.
Yeah, or just get the, yeah. I think the firemen know it's foam.
I mean, I know they know it's foam. Would you know that the foam works on bees? You know it works on fire because it's a fire suppressant, like fire and bee suppressant.
I don't know. I would just think foam would do a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, good point.
What is the craziest thing that's happened to someone you know? 844-999 Ola. Calls on the way. You are listening to the Men's Room Radio Network.
We return to the men's room with Miles and Thrill.
Coming up, the return of Who Sucks Less. Our question today, what is the craziest thing that's happened to someone you know? SUV drove off the interstate and went airborne, flying through the air through a fence and then into a bunch of beehives, boxes and boxes of beehives. Took responders a while to be able to figure out what to do with those bees. They were trapped inside the SUV, finally escaped.
Apparently, quick side note, a comment came in and said, as far as bees go, it says, you can pour some gas kind of far away. Bees really like gas. So I haven't responded, like, do they really? The guy says, yeah, when I was a landscaper, if we left the gas can open, they would all swarm around it. Don't know if it's all types of bees, but some at least.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, I'd have never known.
Is that like fruit flies with vinegar?
I guess so. Maybe. Like, he didn't know this. It's just his experience from being a landscaper. Like, man, if we left it open, there were the bees.
Guy was naked and was being subdued by police, and at some point in time, they decided to tase him. He pulled out a lighter. Somehow that ignited the taser and caught his beard and chest hair on fire. Meanwhile, a woman died after contracting a flesh-eating bacteria from oysters, and a man who was 70 years old, he had retired in London, walking down the street in the afternoon, 1:30, burst into flames spontaneously, and now he's gone. What's the craziest thing that's happened to someone you know? 844-999-OLA.
Hello, Russell. Welcome to the men's room.
Hola, bitches.
Hola.
All right, you're on speakerphone in my car. Sound okay?
Sure. That's fine with us.
Sure. All right. Well, to start story, so my friend's a crazy rock climber guy. He was trying to get me into rock climbing. Bouldering, to be exact, which is kind of climbing, except you don't really have ropes. You just kind of throw pads below a rock and you just climb it. I don't know. kind of fun. YouTube it, I don't know. So anyways, he shows me this image on Google Maps. He's like, let's go find these rocks in the middle of the woods, middle of the mountains. So I, being kind of naive and dumb, was like, sure, let's go do it. So we get some machetes, a bunch of pot. I get way too stoned before we head out. So the drive down, I don't really remember the drive very well. But eventually, I know we get there, we get some pull off. I wakes me up. I eventually come to, like, all right, let's start making a trail through the woods to find some rocks to climb on. Why not? So we get in there, we're climbing up cliffs, going up some crazy stuff, and eventually find the rock field, and he's not happy with it, so we keep going. And then the bushes get kind of thick, like kind of up past our waist. And then I hear him, he starts chomping ahead because he's getting excited. He wants to, get to the rocks, I guess. But he keeps chopping. I hear him chopping sticks. Then all of a sudden I hear something that sounds a little bit different than a stick. Sounds a little more like a thud. And then this guy's kind of crazy. He has super high pain tolerance. So, like, I know when something's wrong, it's really wrong. So he turns around and looks at me and goes, hey, we need to go back. I'm like, well, why? What's up? He goes, look at my knee. Okay, look at his knee. He has a giant gash in his knee. And we are in the middle of the woods off of Highway 2. I don't know if you guys driven over there before, but it's really mountainy, foresty.
Yeah, there's nothing there, man. Exactly.
No, there's nothing there. We're in the trees. There's some rocks, and now he has a gaping
Not only that, but you bushwhacked your way in. Like, you didn't even take a freaking trail. Like, it'd be one thing to have to hike out a 5-mile trail. It still sucks, but at least someone cleared it. It's in somewhat decent shape. You guys went in there and bushwhacked your way in.
Yeah, we took the stupidest route that we possibly could as well. But anyways, luckily we have cell service. I'm like, all right, dude, let's get you out of these bushes. Get out of the bushes. We're in this, like, essentially the side of a cliff. It's just a bunch of rocks, but it's really steep. So I'm like, all right, well, what do you want to do? Like, you can hobble out of here? No, can't hobble out of here. Darn, all right. So we called 911. 911 was absolutely worthless. We went to, like, this half-hour conversation. We were like, so, all right, we're in this field. We gave them our GPS coordinates because we at least had that. And they're like, okay, what trail are you on? No, we're not on a trail. We cut a trail. This is where we're at. Okay, so you're by the car. No, we're not by the car. We're on our own trail. I went back and forth with that for about a half hour.
What was just wrong with the GPS?
And by the way, dude, I'm in the middle of the woods. My battery's going low. I can't be on the phone with you for a half an hour.
But, I mean, if you give the GPS coordinates, isn't that what you need? Regardless of where you might be, if you go to the GPS coordinates, then that's where you are, as I understand it, right?
That's what I thought, too. Maybe we just had a faulty 911 dispatcher. Who knows?
You also kind of bushwhacked in your own trail.
You did.
So, I mean, you know the coordinates, but it's not... I don't know. I think they'd probably just ask you, like, is there a trailhead near there? Like, can we get equipment in there?
Sure.
No, there was absolutely nothing near there. We were, as I said,
was he bleeding? Was he bleeding out? Was he able to walk? What was his condition?
He couldn't bend his knee. He wasn't bleeding out. We were able to stop the bleeding, so that was fair at least.
How long were you guys out there?
Oh man. So eventually 911. Okay, we're going to send the fire department. But they didn't even change the call to the fire. They made us call the fire department. So we're like, okay, call the fire department. Eventually it gets to the point where the fire department's going to come and get us. Cool. 3 hours go by, and I feel like little backpack whistles that you think I'm never going to use this in a survival situation. Well, I get to use a little backpack whistle in a survival situation. So I'm sitting there on a rock trying to blow this whistle to see if they can hear us. Eventually I hear them whistle back, like, oh crap, they're coming. Then I hear them run to pop through the trees, the whistling stops. Like, okay, so, and then my friend, he's still on the phone talking to them, because he can't do it. I'm the one trying to get people to come to us. But then the whistling stops. I wait a half hour, still nothing. So I go back to him.
Hey, hold on for 1 minute. Hold on. We're going to let our stations identify themselves, and then we'll find out if you're alive or not, and if you made it out okay. I'm sure you did.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not.
He's still there.
Hola! The shenanigans continue on the Men's Room Radio Network.